A good now of Shabbos. Said the Seder Beraishis. You don't really get too much time to talk about it, to learn it. So I'm trying something. I'm going to say something now that's different than I wrote in the Nahar Shalom and in the Divrei Shalom and in the Pirkei Shalom. So it's a different angle, and I'd like you to think about it. It says in the Mishnah in Ovis that Beraishis is the 10th Maimer. But the first portion bring it down that the 10th Maimer of the Asor Mamoris, they count 9 Vayemels. So where is the 10th? Beraishis Nami Maimer. Beraishis is also Maimer. I always took their word for it, but I don't know Hebrew, so I took its word for it. But the Emerson was that I didn't understand it. What do you mean Beraishis is a Maimer? That means in the beginning. Where does it say the word to say, to speak, to what equal? So I never understood it. But I went along with it. And based on what I went along with, I had the other pshatim. And which they make sense, and whatever it is. And I don't know if it's safe to say you change your mind on the pshatim. No, it's just that I saw a different pshat now, and I want to give it over to you. The word Beraishis, Irene says, with Beraishis, with Reishis, he created the world. With the word Reishis, he created the world. Shemaim V'Artz. And what does it mean by Beraishis? Because when he said the word Reishis, it meant the beginning, mean the roots, the elements, whether we learn like Rashi or like the Ramban, whether it was actually only the elements that he created, or that he actually created the world and just had it all covered up and had to bring it out, the pile. But whatever it is, with whatever he imagined or said the Reishis should mean, that's what he meant. So now we have a problem that we have. We have a problem. How do you do? I'm sorry about this. So Mamoris, yes, it says that we asked the Kasha over there that in the Maimoris we find different Maimoris, and so one took a lot more words than the others did. So if that's the case, so obviously those words were necessary. So how come all of a sudden, you're able to get with one word Reishis, you get the whole foundation. So I think to say like this, that Reuven Shalom, whatever Kavayochel, the way we understand it, so we see it in Chogaidi, that Shabbos was the first thought, and it was the last thought, and then it came out for the first, and it came out last. So what does it mean now? Machshava, all of Machshava, Tchila, what do you call it? And so that what does it mean to divide Machshava and talk by the Reuven Shalom? I say I don't understand that, but whatever it is, it's a concept of what he wants to do, and there's a concept of doing it. So when he wanted to do the world, if he would have made an idea in his mind what the world should look like, by saying Yehi Olam, it would have been a world with that one word. Just like you see, he'd be like Beraishis, Beraishis. Whatever I imagine Beraishis should be, I could imagine the whole world to be. So what did I do? I went instead and I made Beraishis. Because I did that, I now have to clarify and invent another 9 Mamoris to add on to it, to bring out the world. If you started with the elements, now I have to create the whole world from it. So it took 9 more Maimoris to do, and that's already a tircha for the Reuven Shalom. He could have done it on one word, Namish, and he did it this way only to punish the Rishoyim and to give Srat for the Tzaddikim. And that's what Pshat Namish is. Okay, that's what I believe is Pshat. Yeah. Okay. Now, in the Reuven Shalom, the world, it tells us a new thing. In the what did the Rebbeinu do with the water that covered the earth? Right? It says, all the water that's underneath Shemayim, we'll talk about what Shemayim is in a minute. It said, we'll see it with the ground. And it was so. Okay. Where did he do with this water? He covered Mayim. How do you do it? So Rashi, I think, says over here, he covered Mayim, Shetucham, they were svezed, and what did he do? He stuck it into the Ukainis. Okay. First of all, what is the Ukainis? When I was a kid in Yeshiva, I had a Rebbe Taki that translated it as the Atlantic. And the justification of that pshat was that there are no islands really in the Atlantic. The Atlantic has no islands at all. You have the England and you have the Caribbean, but already we call it different names, the Caribbean Sea, the Irish Sea, things like that. We don't call it anymore the Atlantic. The Atlantic is no. The Pacific, on the other hand, has many islands. The Indian Ocean has also islands, but Mediterranean has islands. But what do you call it? The Atlantic doesn't have islands. Okay, so it made sense a little bit. We also know that the Atlantic is higher than the Pacific, and so on. That's what the problem was when they made the Panama Canal. You have to have locks in it because the difference in water height. They have to bring it down until we get to the next water. The Pacific is much lower. When you come across Cape Horn, it's around the end of South America. Over there, where the oceans actually collide and clash together, there's tremendous storms and it's tremendous waves. And that was Magellan's genius that he was able to go through there. Otherwise, nobody ever went that way. That's what he always wanted to go around the Cape of Good Hope, which around South Africa, if they wanted to go to the other side. They never went around Cape Horn. And these were the time Madaba. So I never was able to imagine exactly what's taking place. Does he mean the Rebbeinu Shalom put a hole in there, and now you got a big hole and we have to fill up with the water? So what happened to that sand or the earth that existed there? That became the mountain on the other side. It doesn't, I don't think it fits even. And I don't think on the globe you'll see that such a thing, that the mountains are comparative to the oceans. And besides, you have oceans are salt water, and we have big water parts of the Great Lakes, the Caspian Sea, and other seas in Asia, and they're all fresh water. So how come they have freshwater seas? So I want to tie in, obviously, that the world looks like our world, and it was underwater. And Reuven split the waters. And this water that surrounded the earth yet, he had to get rid of it. Where did he put it? He put it into the ocean. How do you put water into the ocean? You get all it does is flood more water, right? And then we won't have any earth again. Because you have the water goes around the earth, there's more water than is possible. So what do you mean stuck it into the ocean? He made the poles. The poles are higher than the water. And we all know about everyone they're claiming about this, global warming and all this thing. What are they worried about? They're worried about if the poles melt for 1 degree or 2 degrees, there's no more Florida anymore. Stuff like that. In other words, that's how much water is added into the world. So since we learned that in the time of Enosh, the Rebbeinu flooded a third of the world, that means how did he do? He brought in global warming. He warmed the world, and they got up until there was enough water coming off the poles to drown whatever we can call it, what the world called Atlantis or whatever it is there, but a third of the world. Okay, so that's what I think is the time of the world of the poles. Then we have what I want to tell you before. Yeah, what is the rakia? And the rakia seems here that is what divides between the waters is called the rakia. Where is the sun? So it says, when he meant the sun, he says, he didn't put it on the other side of the water. He put it in the divide. So this whole line, through how many billions of miles it is to the sun, is all part of the rakia. So what we call our universe is all contained in the rakia. And therefore, the only water we know about is only on the earth, that there is this water. Why he made water here, I don't know. He could have made the world without water, but then it's chofma of human, whatever he had to do with food and all that thing, so he made water. So all these stories about water on Mars and things, I would say that it's just an interpretation. You saw a bunch of lines over there, you interpreted it to mean that there was water. It's like these water tracts. And I would say it's not true. It's just not, that's the form that it had. On the other hand, if you'll bring real proof, it'll actually find water there. Okay, I'll have to figure out a different shot. That's all I can tell you. But the Pesukim are not going to go away. And this still means Chayru Rakia. Okay, now we have in the Reuven created this double. There's one thing before talking. The Reuven made that there should be the trees, the earth should form things that it should be the tree should taste like the fruit. No, it's actually I don't know if you said it's edible, or at least when you bite into it and you suck on it, you'll get that taste. I can't even see it. In reality, we only know of two things that the Gemara says have that: the esrik and the pepper, the peppercorn. This kind of pepper, black pepper, white pepper, that pepper. Those two, the tree and the fruit, taste the same. And that's why it creates hodo. And the Reuven Shalom, this is shot that the earth disobeyed, and the Reuven Shalom punished it later. How did he punish it? When Adam was chayte, so he hallowed the oretz ba'avula. So that was the chance to get the oretz. Question is, how is it possible that the earth doesn't listen? The same thing would be when you give a loyal secretary to do something and does exactly what you told him, but doesn't do what you really asked for. In other words, for whatever reason, that I can't give it to you, but you can't punish a person if technically he followed your orders. And the orders were to create such a pele, and that the Reuven created, that the earth created, but only one, or two, as I said. And the Reuven meant that all peles should be that way. And for that, they're wrong. So in other words, when someone just is Yetzer talking, just when you ask someone to do something, and he technically did it, he's obviously did not do it. And he's either on the thing, you have a right technically to punish him, but you can't actually punish him for now. You have to find a secondary thing to cause this punishment. But you can't actually punish him as long as he technically followed the instructions you gave him. Then it tells us that God created two great lights, and there's going to be there should have been two. And what happened? All of a sudden it calls in one big one and one little one. So what happened to the two big ones? So it says because the Levana came to Reuven Shalom with the Taina. How is it? It can't be for two kings to rule the world as one at the same time. So therefore, one has to be smaller. So the Beraishis gave him to make him smaller. Even though technically, even I gave you a good answer, why are you picking on me? It's not that I was wrong. Like you're saying, normally you're picking on me. You said it, okay, you do it. Okay, but that's when I'm wrong in what I said. If I'm right in what I said, why are you picking on me? Why is it me? I told you the truth. It was a valid tiny. So the pshat is this. And first of all, what is the tiny really? Why is it? It's not two kings ruling at the same time. One is ruling in the day, one rules at night. Since then, if that's the case, it's two different times. So it's like two countries. You have two kings. They can always be one. They can get along. In one country you can't get along, but in two countries you can get along. So in China, maybe it's not that, but it really is that there are two periods of time that are not day and not night, and that's between after Shki and Seis Kechavim, and between Alisa Shachar and Netzacham. Those two times of the day are not day or night. They could be considered both day or night. So then you would have either two things. Either you would have, if the two kings each wanted control of it, you'd have war. Or in the case that both of them will back off and you have nothing. In other words, nobody rules at that time. And that neither one is a good thing for the world. And that was what the moon tined. It wouldn't work. Can't work. And so Beraishis made him smaller. And made him smaller, not only so much to the degree that he's a smaller light, he doesn't even have his own light. All he does is project the light of the sun. But whatever it is there, that makes it that really we're all under subject to the sun in reality, even though there are benefits that come only through the moon, the tides or other things that come in through the moon. Cucumbers grow because of the moon. But all of these things are only because that's a care of the moon of reflected light. That's all the sun's light. Okay. We have, besides Tuesday, which most guys who want to get married on Tuesday, they really get married on Wednesday. And the reason they want to get married on Tuesday because it says 2 times Toiv. And that's true, but there's another day, and that's Friday. It has Toiv, and then it says Toiv Moed at the end. It could be in Europe. See, there's several reasons, I guess, in Europe why everybody got married on a Friday. Most of the reasons were simply they had no money. So they used to make the Suda Shabbos into the Suda Sheva Brachas. So they're able to get 2 things going at the same time. On the other hand, it could have been because of this reason. So you'd say maybe the Thursday night people are zeicher to this, the winter Thursday night people, because they're really getting married on Friday. So maybe Taina Chinam. So maybe they have a special mind because the Tuesday people get married at night, they get married on Wednesday. So it's really the Monday people get married at night, and that it's a Tuesday. So anyway, but the custom is still to get married on Tuesday. Okay. It says the word at the end, the Yalkut says Toiv Ma'od means the Malach HaMavos. The nation created the Malach HaMavos. Why is that called Toiv Ma'od? Why we all think that the Malach HaMavos is a bad guy. He's a Satan, he's the Yetzirah. We call him a bunch of names. Why are we all of a sudden saying that, he's Toiv? The truth is, the concept of death is really a good thing. No one wants to die. I agree with you. But if you want to have a world that people will create, that will make better than what it was, improve, that will only be if they're challenged to be able to bring out their own keches. If everybody lives forever, so the only ones that'll be in charge will be the first group, because they're not getting, there's no reason for them to retire. So they keep adding and making delegates or whatever it is there, but no one else will grow up to be the head of that group. And therefore the incentive dies in people and they won't create. But once they have death, so that means somebody has to replace that person and so on. Then I grow to the best of my ability to be able to be the one that's going to replace. And that's the time. You have the same thing you find the Gemara as certain Tanoim live very long times. I don't know what very long means, but it's long times. So the Gemara has Barabachunim Barakonet lived a long time. So first Rebbe asks him a question, why did you live a long time? And whatever answer he gives, he then says, give me a bracha. So Rabbi Chanan Kana gives Rebbe a bracha, you should live to half of my life. So that's all? Like, what kind of bracha is that? Why would you do it? He said, because you have children that are waiting to take over your place. Normally a person can go out and do his own stuff. He doesn't have to replace anybody. But once you're in a position like a Nasi, where his job is hereditary, therefore there has to be a place for the next and we find that there's a problem existing with Hasidus, a lot of it. It's a Rebbe's Einikel that becomes the next Rebbe, not the Rebbe's kid. Because the kid is already 60 years old, 70 years old when the father's a nifter. So if that's the kind, he's already past the prime. The Einikel is 40 years old. It's okay, the Einikel we can make a Rebbe because he's got 30, 40 years ahead of him. About the one that's the son doesn't have much in them, so the son usually will have to find something else to do to be able to find his mokim in the world, and therefore this is you have this problem of what do you call it, the hereditary. The same when there's a position involved, there's people when the First World War made a big part of it was the fact that Edward didn't become king as early as Wilhelm and the Nicholas, because they were all first cousins, and Afal became their kings, and he's only a prince, and that bothered him to a big degree that there was sin in among them. Okay. Yeah. Now the Beraishis, when he made the world, he tells him you can eat these fruits, you can eat this. That time everybody was a vegetarian, so I assume that the fruits were able to produce a perfect protein with all 6 amino acids. And that I don't know, because as far as I know, no actual growth, beans, whatever lentils, whatever they use to get a protein, they're not perfect proteins. They only have as much as 5 amino acids. And because of that, they don't really give you the keach that protein is supposed to give you. And that only comes from actual animal products, whether it's meat itself, or milchiks, even eggs. But it has to be from animal products to have protein. So it could be that at that time the Beraishis made that the vegetables gave it, or that the person did not need all 6 amino acids, 1 or 2. I have no idea. The Beraishis could have made it any way he wanted. But anyway, originally they were not able to eat. So therefore he made fruit, grass and fruit, whatever it is, everything you can eat. I assume, like we have all the pears, we make a bracha on the pears, right? That it's a good, tasty fruit. I like it. I like a peach. I like have a good apple also. I like a lot of things I like, right? So that's what we make the brachas on. When we see Ilonis, you make the bracha, the Beraishis made them, what do you call a Hanis B'nei Adam. He wants people to feel good and to go good. Why would he do that? You can make it that you have to eat because, like, you couldn't exist without eating. And it seems during the Middle Ages, what was really considered meals, and we were very poor, and Klal Yisrael was very poor in Russia and so on. But in the Middle Ages, they used to eat hard bread and ale. And what was the purpose of ale? Not just to give a little shikvus with the bread. The bread was hard as a rock, so they had to put it into the ale to soak it up and soften it up. And then it was edible. And that was a meal, and you were thankful for that meal because you ate, because the body was hungry and needed food. And they didn't have any big taste differences that they knew about, so they didn't have maybe about candy and stuff like that. So they were satisfied with that. But they needed that food, not necessarily that it was tasty. On the other hand, fruits are very tasty. Even vegetables are very tasty. So the Rebbeinu made these things that people should want to eat. Why should you want to eat? Because you have to be healthy. And if you have no time in what you're eating, when you get it, you simply don't taste it, you don't feel like eating. The only time you'll turn around eating is when also your body is going to pot. And therefore, I must have food. But until that time, you wouldn't get into it. So the Rebbeinu made it that it's tasty. He also made it that you get hungry. In other words, that the reason that you eat is to keep yourself healthy. Well, how do you get healthy? By eating, staying alive. And that the Rebbeinu made you get hungry in order that you won't forget about staying alive. Same thing, he made the big gates of Horus in marriage. And that's not when the Yitzhahar comes, but I meant that Yitzhahar. So obviously the Bnei Shalom made it so there'll be procreation in the real world. They don't have that Yitzhahar. There isn't any procreation. So I would think that as far as food, let's go first. That food, the Gemara, the Ramban, all the Bali Musa, they speak about you should not eat because I'm hungry. You should eat because I'm going to serve my Creator, and my Creator requires I eat X amount of different types of foods. And whether they're sweet, not sweet, or doesn't, that's why the Rambam puts it on. That I shouldn't eat things just because they're sweet or not sweet. I should eat it because I have to eat it to be healthy. And that's the way you should live, and that way. And then Emerson, that's a Yaakov, when the Rebbeinu told him that I want you to that's the way you should live. And Yaakov said, I know if I can do it. He says, if I can come back, be shalom, then I'll accept this concept as a God, as a Lekib. That's a Yaakov that we talk about. So this is thing. So we have this thing, and yet you put a thing. You shouldn't overeat. So one of the problems by making it so good tasting, you have that problem. That you have that Yitzhahara. What do you do? How do you do it? I would think that when he made it to taste good, that we have to work on it. So that takes avodah. That makes a servant of Kodesh Baruch Hu. That the fact that we're able to control our desires and if it's important for the world, but our desires should be able to be curtailed. But that's what makes us holy. That's what makes us everything else. We're limited in certain things, and that makes us kedusha. That's kedusha. Yeah. So I want to tell you, it could be, there are families that make cereals, for instance, sweet cereals. They call them Shabbos cereals. They only give it on Shabbos. They only give soda on Shabbos. That's very nice. I don't know if you have to keep your kid away from eating these things or not. But each person has his own decision, how he wants to raise his kids and how he wants to bring out this concept that Shabbos is better, is important. But what are you saying? You're saying that I'm making Shabbos better in food because I want you to wait for Shabbos. I want you to want Shabbos. We celebrate things. Why do we celebrate them? Why do we celebrate them with food? Why do we celebrate with food? Because we want these things to happen again and again and again. So how does that fit in then with what we just said before? That you're not supposed to eat things just for the sense of, I like the taste of it. And those the ways that the whole point of waiting for it is because it tastes better. In that case, that's not a chesron, because it makes the mitzvah want to do the mitzvah. One even say a pshat in the Mishnah in Ovis. The Mishnah says over there, if there's three eat on the table and they don't say the Torah, it's Hilei from Zifrei Mason. On the other hand, if you did, you ate from Shulchan Hashem, which means like kachim. Three guys say Torah. Now, kachim is a very funny thing. Kachim has no limit how much you eat. You find in the Gemara, I forgot his name, that when he was alive, there was no noiser in the Beis Hamikdash. The gates of the Beis Hamikdash was to sing when he came, because he's coming to eat up all the noiser. There's no noiser when he's here. How much did he have to eat? How was he able to eat it? That I don't know, and I have no answer for that. But Lamaisa, obviously, he ate it. And I assume that it still went down easy. If it didn't go down easy, then it's not an achil. It's a, what do you call it? So he ate it and he enjoyed it. So the point of why do you eat things that you need? Because God gave you food to serve Him. So to reach a high madrega, it's the only reason I should eat, not because I'm hungry. I should eat to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Beraishis also gave us a Torah to him. If we learn and speak Torah on it, then there's a reason why we're eating. We're eating because that way we stay three guys together so we can talk and learning. That's so important that you can eat whatever you want. Just like kachim, you can eat whatever you want, as long as it fits in with obviously the korbanos. But that's what you can eat. I mean, anything you want. And that's the point I want to say. As long as it fits in Neila Chassan, I can make a big chassan of different types of foods, because make a siyum. What they serve at the siyum. Obviously, it's a big deal what they serve at the siyum, because I want to make another siyum. So therefore, things that cause mitzvahs, cause matzah, Shabbos. I make Shabbos. I've had to wait for Shabbos a whole week because we're going to have special foods on Shabbos. That is an important thing in food. So therefore, it's not because we want the food. We want the mitzvah. We're looking forward to the mitzvah which gets us food. And that's permissible.
Pudi texted me that the person's name was Yochanan ben Nerbai.
Huh?
Pudi just texted me Yochanan.
Yep, this is called the Shema too. I want to tell you a story which happened to me when I was in Telz a long time ago. But they used to have the dinners of the Shiur was in the Beis Medrash. You understand, it was in Cleveland alone. But they used to get a donor, a Westvana from New York sometimes. Particularly that year, they got one. Yeshiva Bacham were not invited. I was invited simply because my cousin was, and because his father raised money for the yeshiva. So he was invited. He was alive in Toledo. And he was invited, so I guess they gave me a ticket too. So I sat there, and like Yeshiva Bacham, who don't really understand what's happening in the world, we see this honoring this balabas. And we say, They have covered. Look what they got to give. The thing they, we're making fun of covered. And then he got up to tell us that he had to fly that time, and flying that time with a propeller plane, about 3 or 4 stops going from New York to Cleveland. It's now 40 minutes, whatever it is. He had 3 or 4 stops, and he said, I really had 103 fever, and I felt it important to come anyway, because I think it's an important Indian. And everyone said, especially our Bochum, that said, Mr. Snefish for COVID. And okay, felt justified in our minds. I come home for Ben Azmanim, and I tell my father was Shivas Atzal. I tell him what happened, and one of the figures give me a yashikeach. You realize what's important or it's not. He says, I'm going to tell you why it's important, why we give cover to a Gevir who takes on himself a kibbutz in the yeshiva. He says, if they would give this money to a college, to a library, he would meet more important donors and patrons than he'll meet through yeshiva. And it will help him in business, it will help him in other things. He would get a name and reputation for himself in the what you call the elite circles. And so why is he giving it to the yeshiva? Because to him, the only covet he wants is from B'nai Torah. Goyim giving him covet or Frei Yidden giving him covet doesn't impress him at all. It's not covet to him, and therefore he doesn't want it. I only want that covet that comes from Torah. You got to think about it yourself now. First, everybody wants a little bit of covet. Why dafka want it from B'nai Torah? I don't care where it comes from. And that's a very important thing to learn. Beraishis then talks about this. They make a little bit out of no, it's the same thing because they came before Gan Eden. The Eza Connect he made an Eza Connect. Now, whether they were actually 2 people attached to each other, back and forth, or whatever it means. It seems that's the pshat that the origin were 2, and that's pshat when we say that a chosin is always looking for his aveda. That's why it's bishmi kaddish. Says because he has to go look for the aveda don't go looking for him. And because of that, what he called whatever they become one again. Ultimately in Mabah, or even here, to a certain extent. And we become one. What does that mean, become one? That you work together. That's what it means. Woman is the Eza Kenegdai of a man. Even though Rashi says, Zocha Eza or Zocha Kenegdai, that's not what it says in the Torah. The Torah says that Adam didn't find an Eza Kenegdai. He was looking for an Eza Kenegdai. And God said, I'm going to make him an Eza Kenegdai. What he did was he made someone that had the same ideals as him. And therefore, if he's Zoichedo, when he wants to do good, she'll help him. And he wants to do bad, she will oppose him. On the other hand, he's not Zoiche. If he wants to do good, she will oppose him. If he wants to do bad, she will help him. So that's the difference, what it means, Zocha and Zocha. But as far as the woman herself, connected, the man is an Eza Kenegda. She is someone that's going to argue with him. You can argue with him maybe constantly about what he does and what he writes and all these things. And that's basically it. So the Beraishis made this relationship between husband and wife one that can grow into emes ahava, We understand Ava. Not that there's two Avas we don't understand. There's Ava, I love chicken, meaning I want to eat it. And there's a different, I love chickens, so I don't eat them. Right? So therefore, those two different definitions. So when you say I love in the sense of love, means I'm doing for you. So what I'm doing with the Rebbeinu, when I'm doing for my wife, I get into the relationships between husband and wife. It's that the husband wants to please the wife too. And that's the one, each one wants to be a giver. And that's what's called love. And that point of leading to love, then it's a point that you can understand what is the good part of the thing and what is created, that we're able to create things in the world. That because we're one, we act as one. We always appear. Years ago, it was obvious like that because you only had a love, and the women generally didn't work. They were together with the husband. They always helped the husband. So let's take a picture of the love in the Rebbetzin. We all understood that most cases, I can't even say most cases, in some cases, the love, the Rebbetzin was the Rebbetzin because the husband was the love. But we all know there were always cases where the reason the love was because the Rebbetzin was the Rebbetzin. That's the reason he was the love. So we understand that it's one. They always acted as one. They were one team. And now we have different professions, different, what do you call it, thing there. But again, like Michaela, I would say that's also one, no matter what the woman does, because her purpose is to make the husband be able to sit and learn. So the tachlis is learning. And then the question is, how does he do that? So if there's someone has to give money, so they make money. So that's one tielis that they both do. That's the Eitz Hadas. That's a strange thing. We all know. What does it mean that they added chokhmah, the knowledge to him? What knowledge did he add? Did he get from it? And so on. I want to time like this. The Shiva, first, a simple pshat of the Eitz Hadas. The Shiva says this, that every time Adam Rishon would pass the Eitz Hadas, he would look at it and say, that fruit looks good. I probably would like to eat it. I probably like it. You can't really say you have a Yetzer Hara to eat it because you pass Chinatown all the time. You have one and buy all the fruits they have there. But all these fruits we get on Rosh Hashanah. Does anybody buy them the rest of the year because they like to taste it? Do they even buy it on Rosh Hashanah? When was the last time someone ate recipient, a papaya? These are available all the time, not only in Chinese stores. What do you call it? Dragon fruit tree. Right? I don't eat it. There's a Rishalmi that says you're mechuyev to eat all the fruits once a year, at least, to appreciate it. Right? But you don't have a Yetzer Hara for it. You have it down. The guy has the shachiyono on Rosh Hashanah and he brings you a piece. Maybe you'll take a bite just to see how it tastes. But there's no Yetzer Hara. So until he ate from the Eitz Hadas, there was no Yetzer Hara for it. Right? So what do you mean it was table it looked good? Meaning there's no reason I don't eat it. And therefore, just like I had to taste the peach first because I had to bite it first before I knew what it tasted like. So the same thing here. If I would have tasted it, I know what it tastes like. So why didn't you do it? Because God said no. That part, you remember, there's always a boss in the world, someone who controls the world. We don't have that anymore, obviously, the Eitz Hadas, but we do have an Eitz Hadas. We have a chazal in the world. The goyim love chazal, right? They eat pork all the time. It's a big meichel by them. Why don't we? In fact, that's one of the tainas they even have to us. You believe in God, and God created a food that can, an animal that can own, that's whole tachlis to be eaten. It has no other purpose except to be eaten. So why don't you eat it? You see that God created it. It's made it for eating. So why aren't you eating it? Because God said no. So that reminds us always that there's a Beraishis in the world, that we don't do certain things because he said no. For the Goyim, he didn't say no, so they can do whatever they want. So he said no. So how do you learn about Yetzer Hara, B'fnim Yetzer Hara, B'chutz? I don't know what these things mean. One thing I think he didn't know and didn't understand, the teach of Mayim Genuvim Yom Toku. Now that we are used to Averos and used to tell the kid, no, don't eat the cookie, right? What the kid's going to do is going to eat the cookie, right? You'll have to give the kid a patch or something, but that's the thing. That's the other thing. Whatever tastes good and you don't want, they'll sneak it out. They'll eat it. Because Mayim Genuvim Yom Toku, the cookie tastes twice as good to him than it does to you. Because it tastes good as a cookie, and also he has that extra thrill that he has of Mayim Genuvim. So until he ate it, he had no hasog of Mayim Genuvim. But after he ate it, and he saw that extra thrill, then he understood Mayim Genuvim. But because that extra thrill only really exists at one time, because every time you eat it, you do the same avera, it says, doesn't seem to be as a thrill anymore, doesn't it? For that reason, it'll never taste the same again as it did the first time. The chet will always taste the best the first time, and after that, it always goes down in madrege. And therefore, a person doesn't really appreciate it, and it's possible to do tshuva. At the same time, when the Dintera came for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who gave you to eat this and so on. So Adam said, "Isha Ashenasati, the woman you gave with me. Now it's your fault, God. You gave it to me." Okay. Now, is that really true? Why did Reuven give him a wife? Because when he's a connector, he didn't have one, he wanted one. So he gave him one. So now you're taking this gift that God gave you and you're blaming him, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for giving you the gift, because that's what chooses it. So that's a taina, another malicious, it's a kafur taiva. That's a terrible chet. On the other hand, you see somehow, no one forced the Mauritian to eat from the Yetzer Das. Assuming she even gave it to him. If she didn't tell him it's from the Yetzer Das, or he didn't know, she mixed it into the cereal or whatever, she mixed it in. They ate from the Yetzer Das. They wouldn't punish because they didn't know what they were doing. Animal doesn't know what it's doing unless then they will say an animal doesn't know what's good for it and not good for it, so he shouldn't have eaten from the Yetzer Das. Could be. I don't know. So why did they eat? Okay. But the man definitely should have known that he's not supposed to eat from the Yetzer Das. So it's really his own fault. So why Taka did he eat from the Yetzer Das? Like we said, he had no real Yetzer Hara for it. And she gave it to him. He knows what the consequences are. And she's telling him the Bab Meiser, the Nochish pushed me to the tree and I didn't die, and all this thing. Hey, he knows that's not true. I mean, that's true, that's what happened, that he believes, but that this is what it meant, and you're supposed to die immediately, and just touching it was enough. That he knew was not what the God said. So therefore, why did he eat from it? So obviously, he understood himself that we had to create the world, as it was be said, the incentive of the world and everything else, is that there has to be death in the world. And therefore he ate the Yitzadas. Calls man like this, maybe he wouldn't have eaten it. Because my wife don't eat it, I'm not going to go die myself. Whatever it is there. But Lamaisa, since my wife already ate it, and she ate it on purpose, so then I'll go along with it. So they ate from the Yitzadas. I'll explain another time when the Beraishis, they call like hiding from the Beraishis. How's that possible? That's not for now. We're too close to the end. Yeah, so basically that is it. On the other hand, I would think that Cain and Hevel did not eat from the Yitzadas. Why would they not have eaten from the Yitzadas? Because why would Chava have given it? Says Rashi brings down, why did he give Adam to eat it? Because she was jealous that she dies and Adam lives, that Adam will marry somebody else. That bothered her. So she wanted Adam to die too. But her children, why would she want her children to die? So Cain and Hevel, she probably didn't give it to them. So if they didn't give it to Cain and Hevel, why did they die? So, okay, Cain, maybe death already was brought into the world, so you're able to kill. But that's how Hevel died. But how did Cain die? So the Taki is a medrash. There's two different medrashim. One is that Lemech killed him. If you have Shiva, whatever it is there, so that means that 7 generations, the 7th generation will kill him. And there's a Rashi in the end of the Seder that there's a medrash that Cain died in the Mabul. That means Cain was the longest living human being ever. He lived all the years until the Mabul, 1600 something years. So that's the case. That means he didn't die. There was no death then. And it seems also that we see, from Rashi himself says that, because when he tells you that about the Chatroim of the Deiros, the Anshi Hashem, so he says, who are the Anshi Hashem? Chioya, Mesikuya, with all the children of Cain. So much they must be around, even when he brought the Mabul. So that's a long, long time. Shesh's children all died out. I mean, then the only one was left in the end was Noach. I mean, they also, but the meaning that they had regular death. And so on, 500 years, 1,000 years, no one lived that long, one with Shushelach. But he doubled it. And Cain. So you'd have, not quite, okay. So that's what I want to say. That's why he didn't die, because it wasn't going on. I want to talk about the earth. Rashi brings down by when he created the Shemesh v'Yareach, he made light in the daytime and nights. He says it's all after Sheva Beraishis. But during the 7 days of Beraishis, then it was the sun, the earth that he created originally was there 24 hours a day, every day. So, I mean, I don't understand that Rishon was the Erev, was the Baiker. So obviously you're talking about this, the light there. I mean, these are things that need explanation and exploration to understand it. But basically you see that it's not day or night, that's not so much that. By the poles, there's also day and night. But it's not there for 6 months of day and 6 months of night. But the idea is you can see the sun does go around. It does have shade. One goes to this side and then goes to the other side. So the sun is still going around. So therefore, that's what makes a day. So the day doesn't change. It's light and this one's dark. And what does it really mean if you had light and dark. And he said they both ruled at the same time, that they were both there the whole time. That's what Rashi says over there by the Beraishis. That if they're always there 24 hours, so then it's not day or night. If it means they were together, so that means it was always twilight. That doesn't make sense either. 24 hours of twilight, not this on this. So Shiur Hatzel also said, Shannon, this is, that day is made to create work, so on. Like birds, they wake up with the light, they go to sleep when it's dark. And that's really how people used to do also. The night was made for sleeping, day was made for working, accomplishing. You can say, what do you do when it's 18 hours of night or 18 hours of day? But obviously they did work. And the Gemara brings down that you worked in the fields, or whatever it is, you couldn't talk even. What brachas they make, and they have to bench. Can they bench a regular benching? Can they daven a regular shmonesel if they're poyalim? And so on. Because you're being hired out from sunrise to sunset. You're working 20, but now you're straight through without a rest, without any, no 10-minute break by the 10-minute coffee break at 10 o'clock. There's no such thing in those years. So obviously it was made day and night. It was made one was working, one for resting. And yet it says they were both there the whole time. So Shiur said, this is pshat, that a person had a choice. He can be a guy that's always working, constantly working. And therefore he went from one to the other and the other. He always sought out the light. And then there was one that was lazy, and he would always seek out the dark. And that's a person has to figure in himself. That's when they say a person is, as depressed. He always goes to sleep. He sleeps a lot, right? In the depression. Why? It's an escape. So he looked for an escape place. He goes from night to night to night. It's an escape. Person goes, otherwise he's a workaholic, and so on. He goes from light to light to light. And that's the thing, with neither one is the correct way. You're supposed to have light and day. You're supposed to have it. Another point just to think about is the Shiur pointed out to me, we have a week. Week is 7 days. A month, 29 and a half days, and X amount of chalokim. A sun year, 365 and a quarter days minus 12 minutes, right? We have a cycle. Them is a cycle. And therefore, when you say many years ago, many seasons ago, you're talking about things that actually took place. When you say many months ago, many moons ago, means it was a way when many cycles of the moon. So those were countable. What made a week 7 days? He said, B'Yisrael. So the whole concept of a week came from B'Yisrael. Not there's a change from one day to the next day. There's no 7-day thing. The Beraishis made it that there should be 7 days. And in those 7 days, a person should rest 1 day. And that doesn't even mean a good yid or a goy, because that was Moshe's time at the Pare. The workers need a day off. Otherwise, they can't produce the other 6 days. You're just going to knock them out. So therefore, like the Germans did, they took the slave labor until they killed them, and then took more slave laborers. And that's what's going to happen. But he wanted to live. He wanted to keep doing works, and you have to give him a day off. Give him Shabbos. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. And that's how they were able to keep Shabbos in Mitzrayim. But basically, that was the time. Anyway, there's a lot more in this Seder. Anyway, have a good Shabbos and a good year, a healthy one.